What is up? Welcome to another episode of AYS Fight Club, episode 32. We're rolling. We're gonna get to that 50th and that 100, and we're gonna keep pounding them out. But the hat today brought to you by the Chicago Cubs. Shout out to the Cubbies back in first place. So hopefully we can keep that rolling along. But this is the Fight Club, so we here talk about the fight game. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. We'll jump right into it. Obviously, before we get rolling, subscribe to the Are You Serious Sports on YouTube. Also, check out the Twitter. We got the AYS Fight Club on Twitter, AYS_Fight Club on Twitter. Add me, jump on there, check it out, and talk the fight game. Let's go. So here we go. We're gonna get jumping early. We'll go ahead and start out with the Gulf Coast corner segment. Like to really push the regional MMA. That's one of the biggest things I've been on since episode 1. When my boy Daniel Dees was here for our first several episodes. Definitely an amazing co-host. Hopefully, one day we can get him back. But we talked about that from day one. It was one of the biggest things we ever talked about was pushing regional MMA, pushing the regional guys. And that's what we're going to do. That I'm still going to keep that mantra. That's always been my mindset. As many of you know, I write for several MMA, websites and publicists with a lot of organizations, including, AKA, which is who we're going to talk about right now. Man, the biggest thing is to get out and support these guys because, these are the guys that are going to be in the UFC. They all start somewhere. That's always been my biggest thing. It's always been my mindset, these guys all start somewhere. They all start in regional, organizations and work their way up, pay their dues and work their way up. So we're going to go ahead and jump into AKA 15, the review, the first show in Monroe, which was this past Friday night. First time AKA went across the state over to Monroe. And with AKA, they're on a massive platform with UFC Fight Club. With the Fight Club. Here we go. Of course, they're on the Fight Club. On UFC Fight Pass, which is a massive, massive worldwide stage for many of these guys, many of these regional fighters. And I know Miss Amber Bishop, Mr. John Bishop, Miss Heidi, they do an incredible job of trying to showcase these fighters and show that, Louisiana and, South Arkansas, East Texas, the best talent in the world comes from the South. And they do an amazing job of showcasing these talents. And, AKA 15 was no different, as you expected. We'll start the main event and just kind of talk down a little bit. But as we had on the show last week, even though we had some technical difficulties, we got him back on there at the end. Cody Freeman, who is AKA's featherweight champion, bumped down to bantamweight, which is more of a, his home as far as his MMA career. Definitely where he's more comfortable at being bantamweight. Stepped into the cage, looking to become AKA's first professional double champ. The current reigning featherweight and bantamweight champ. And he went into the cage with a very dangerous fighter. I talked about it before. Jonathan Island is extremely dangerous fighter. I've seen him, firsthand several times. And, his stand-up is powerful. His ground game is very strong. A true mixed martial artist. There's a reason why, he fought Brandon Davis at Gulf Coast MMA. And there's a reason he fought Cody Freeman in the main event here at AKA 15. The guy's a warrior. And that's the reason right there, why he's in the fights he's in. So for Cody Freeman, I knew this was going to be a tough test. But Cody comes out of a fitness fight factory. Johnny Bedford, just a warrior in and of its own. That's just a dog pound over there at Fitness Fight Factory. As Cody was saying, you take your losses in the gym, because it's just warriors from wall to wall. But he didn't take a loss here, and that's what mattered. Cody was able to get the first round submission. It looked like a gator roll into an anaconda choke. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was just from my perspective there at the cage. That's what it looked like, and it was just amazing, showing of just pure mixed martial arts talent. Jonathan, Island, he did the best that he could, but he was stepping in there with another warrior. and it just didn't go Island's way. He'll definitely be back. He's like I said, Jonathan Island is one of those fighters that I love to death. There's a handful of them that you get very close to personally. And Jonathan Island is one of those. He's an amazing person. There's a lot more behind these guys, and that's why I try to bring them on the show. Try and write the articles that I do is to show, and that's why I've said it before. That's really the reason why I've liked the Ultimate Fighter in the past is it humanized MMA. It was always that big conception that it was human cockfighting and this and that. Senator John McCain had called it. I think the Ultimate Fighter really helped humanize the fighters, and that's what I try to do is still carry that on. Show these guys, their stories. But going into the co-main event, man, that was, that's definitely one I hope we can get to run back. Even though the knockout didn't happen, you were on the edge of your seat just waiting for it to happen. It was, I hate to make this comparison because that fight gets a lot of, flack. But like Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou, it was like that feeling that you knew that either fighter can end it at any point. It was just, you were on the edge of your seat, going into the third round, just knowing it could happen. This fight, had a lot more action to it than that one did. But Jamal Tatum and Javon Beverly, just two heavyweights just going at it. Obviously they're kind of reserved at first. When you look at the guy across the cage from you, both of these guys are extremely dangerous guys. But they kind of worked their way into it. They got, it looked like Beverly was, just he was looking for that shot, and he almost got it a few times. It was close to where if he'd have landed that shot, it'd have been a wrap. That'd have been it. But Tatum was just a step ahead in his strikes. He was working his jab a little bit better. Not so much looking for the overhand. He looked for it a few times. More so, just working his striking a little bit more fluid. Especially he was using the oblique kick and using some leg kicks, mixing it up a little bit. Tatum was just that one point ahead each time. At some point in the third round, I'm not sure when it happened. I'd have to go back and look at it. I watched it live, and just the angle they were at, I couldn't see exactly where it happened. But it looked like Beverly had broke his finger, and it was pretty gruesome. I was right there. It looked like a wave where it just it had that wave effect onto it. It didn't look like just a break. A lot of people may want to give him flack saying, "Oh, it's a broken finger, fight through." But no, this didn't look like your average broken finger. Like it looked like it had some water wavage going on to it. Like so hopefully he's okay and he can get back in there. But man, this fight was everything you thought it would be because both of these guys just had you on the edge of your seat. And that's part of it too is the anticipation. Even though you didn't get the knockout, I was still satisfied because I was on the edge of my seat for the almost 9 minutes the almost 15 minutes that it went, just knowing that the knockout could happen at any second. Just every strike was just, it had you on the edge of your seat. That's exactly what you want, and that's what, AKA does so well. Put great fights together. Sometimes things happen, fights fall off at the last second. Don Doyle would have been an amazing fight to see, making his pro debut, but, his opponent got hurt. Sometimes it's hard to get some of these guys matched up last second. But aside from that, I think the main card pretty much held intact except for that one. Mr. James Georgetown does an amazing job of the matchmaking for AKA, and these fights, were all very solid. Moving down to the next, well, it was before where you start at the top, we go work our way backwards pretty much. Josh Lee and Tyler Jones at 185 pounds. Josh Lee is a veteran. He has been around for a while. He decided that this was going to be his last contest. He was ready to go ahead and hang it up. And Mr. John Bishop there, yeah, looked bad about the broken finger. Yeah, it did. Man, it looked rough. Hopefully he's okay, and hopefully he can get back in there. Like I said, hopefully we can even run that one back because that anticipation for that was just, sometimes that's worth it to a true MMA fan. You don't even need that big knockout or big submission. Sometimes the anticipation just, gets your heart racing, and that's exactly what that one did. But getting back to talking about Josh Lee, you know, he got to go out in his hometown. You know, just a guy who's been around for a while. He took on Tyler Jones, who come down from Arkansas. But you know, Josh Lee went in there and did his thing. You know, coming out, you know, you could tell he had that energy in him. He was ready for that one last, you know, hurrah, and he looked good. You know, you could tell the energy was behind him. You know, he had the crowd behind him. You know, definitely the loudest ovation of the night. You know, and that was good to see. You know, at one point it looked like Jones was able to, going off memory here, it looked like I think Jones got the takedown, and then when they were down, Lee was able to, or maybe Lee got the takedown, and then Jones rolled. But when he rolled on top, Lee just grabbed the guillotine, and that was it. You know, finished very quick. You know, very quick in the first round. Just, you know, hey, that if it's gonna go out, you know, you want to go out with the W, and that's exactly what he did. You know, just you know, it was amazing to see, you know, somebody like that go out on top. You know, go out the way they need to. You know, it was a great moment. You know. And then a fight that I was super excited about to see. Really, the next two ones that we're going to talk about, you know, were amazing. I mean, this whole card was just amazing, especially the Fight Pass part. You know, if you got UFC Fight Pass, there's no reason not to go back and check this card out. It was amazing. Just every fight, just when I saw the spreadsheet for the fights, it's like, oh, that's a great fight. And I see the next one, like, oh, that one's better. You know, it just kept building and building and building. You know, that's the amazing thing about these AKA events is, you know, it just, each fight just builds off of the next. You know, it's all about building that momentum. You know, and they do a great job of placing these fights almost like telling a story. You know, building these fights to where, you know, you get hyped up and then you're ready for the next one, and you know, you hyped up, and you know, these fighters, you know, they feed off of that too. You know, that's a huge thing. You know, they feed off of this momentum as well too from the crowd, and you know, you see it in the cage. So you know, everybody is helping everybody out here. um, but working back, you know, our way back, Craig Grove and Jesse Henry. When I saw this one, I was super excited about this one. Craig Grove, you know, just a dangerous Muay Thai style striker. That's really what I was expecting when it was a maybe AKA 13 when he fought Chris Crosby. And Chris Crosby, if you know, is a dangerous black belt. You know, just absolutely one of the best in this area. You know, he goes all over. You know, winning gold medals. I mean, just dangerous. And Grove was able to get the submission. So that like really opened my eyes to, you know, his ground game at being as solid as it is. And coming into this one, I knew he was going to need that. If you haven't seen Jesse Henry, you know, don't let it fool you that he's a welterweight, because he is just a massive individual. I mean, 6'6" at welterweight, you know, that's dangerous. And you could just, I've seen his evolution as well too, where he didn't necessarily use his reach to his advantage, but you can see each fight, you know, he's getting longer and longer on that reach. You know, his opponents are getting further and further back, you know, when he's utilizing that reach. He's keeping them further and further away. And I even saw it here, even though, you know, he didn't get the victory, I saw a lot of improvement from Jesse over, you know, each fight. He's just getting better and better, and that's really all you can ask for. Craig Grove is a dangerous opponent, you know, but Henry did, you know, what he could do, you know, and he looked great too at first, you know, especially in the first round. You know, he did an awesome job just keeping Grove away, you know, using that his distance to, you know, land the strikes in there. But Grove was able to neutralize that and eventually get in and get the takedown. And there's, you know, a height advantage, a disadvantage, a discrepancy there, a reach discrepancy. A lot of times the best way to neutralize that is get your opponent to the ground, and it neutralizes a lot of that advantages. Pretty much it's out the window. And that's exactly what Grove did. He did exactly what he needed to do. He neutralized that. He got it to the ground, and you could just see, you know, his confidence kind of building a little bit. You know, the forearms, the elbows, just everything, using all parts of his arm. That, you know, you see the Muay Thai. He uses his elbows and forearms a lot compared to a lot of the fighters I've seen. You know, he did what he needed to do, and same thing with the second round. You know, he's able to get the takedown and put the pressure on, and then eventually he's able to get the back and get the rear naked choke in the second round. But I mean, for Jesse Henry though, like I said, even though he took the loss, every time I see him in the cage, he's always improving, and I love seeing him in the AKA environment, because I can see him really thriving there, and he's improving each time. He's looked amazing. This was a really solid fight. Both fighters put on a great show. And you could just watch that storytelling. You could see Grove improve. Just each minute went by, he was kind of getting tighter on Henry, and kind of working his way in, and then got what he needed to do, and was able to pull out the victory. And then before that, which is the second fight that kicked off the Fight Pass portion of the card, Chris Miller and Jesse Roberts. Jesse Roberts was making his second pro fight, but if you look at his amateur record, he has beaten, everybody that you could beat. He's got the win over AJ Fletcher. He's got a win over Lauren Thibodeau, who is, on fire in AKA. He's beaten some of the best names. His debut came at Bellator, where he beat AJ Agrazam in that split decision. That got a lot of press and put a lot of eyes on Jesse. But yeah, like Mr. John said, yeah, Jesse is getting better, and Craig is definitely on a streak. Yeah, Craig is definitely on a streak. Man, I love seeing both these guys. Really hope to see both of them back in there really soon. It'd be interesting to see who would face Craig up with it. I'd have to go back. I'd have to flip through some things and look at some rankings and see. I didn't come in prepared thinking about that. But I have to look into that. Maybe I'll do a segment on future matchmaking, regional matchmaking. What names we would like to see clash together, and we'll see if we can plant some seeds here on the show in the local MMA community and see what we can get done here. I like to brag and say that I helped influence the Nakia Brown and Braxton King fight. They fought at Gulf Coast MMA. I always tell this story. I've been told Nakia, I told Braxton this story years ago when I first met both of them. I met Nakia before his pro debut, and I've been on board ever since. Braxton early, maybe after his first fight, I met him, and I've been on board with both these guys, from day one. And I had a dream that I saw them fighting. Like I could just close my eyes and I close my eyes, I could still see the same action. And then when they finally fought, it was just like a proud moment. It's like, oh man, maybe I helped influence that, because I'd say that all the time. Man, I'd love to see Nakia Brown and Braxton King go at it. But maybe we'll do that again. We'll have to put some matchmaking. Maybe we can plant some seeds in the local community here. But yeah, back to Chris Miller and Jesse Roberts. I've seen Chris Miller before. I've actually called at least one of his fights for Atlas Fights, and he's just watching his striking. He's a very unorthodox striker. He threw a question mark kick in there with Jesse Roberts that it looked stout. If he'd have connected on it, man, that would have been a solid hit there. He's just a very unorthodox striker, and a lot of times it works for him. But Jesse Roberts, he's just an athlete on a whole different level. This guy's just a true athlete. His countering was on point. Was working for him. He was just a split second faster. Able to get out there, land his strikes. Just a dangerous fighter. His ground game was working for him. At one point, I thought they were going to stop the fight. Because Jesse had him down. It was like he had him in like a crucifix and was landing shots. I don't know if maybe that was the end of the first or near the end of the second. But he's just a dangerous fighter, Jesse Roberts, and Chris Miller is too, because he can land one of those shots at any time. So it was definitely a great matchup, because it was just, it was a pure athlete in Jesse Roberts and a very dangerous striker in Chris Miller. Just balancing those two out to see, what can happen. If whoever implements their will was going to win that one, and Jesse Roberts, was able to get to the decision. But yeah, both of those guys are super exciting. And then the card, the bout that kicked off the main card was Tyreek Malvo and Joe Saucedo. And, Tyreek Malvo is a very dangerous fighter too. I've seen him since his amateur days. Called his pro debut for UFC when he actually fought Jewel Scott for the UFC title in his pro debut, and he won. He took out Jewel Scott He's a very dangerous fighter, in his own right. But Tyreek went in there. He's fought some tough, had some tough outings the last couple fights against very tough competition. Still growing as a pro fighter, but did it there and did exactly what he needed to do. Comes out of a Gladiators Academy, so he's going to have a stout background. He's also a 3-time state wrestling champion out of Como High School in Lafayette. I know it's out of Lafayette. I want to say it's Como High School, but multiple state wrestling champions. So that's his background there. We've had this talk before, where what style kind of breeds the best fighters, and it almost seems like we say wrestlers, which pains me to say because I have a striking background. Started as Taekwondo when I was younger and moved up to boxing. So my heart is with the striking, but yeah, it pains me to say that, but man, I really think it's true. It just seems like, that wrestling background, it does a lot for your endurance and the ground game and just, a lot of other factors. But yeah, Tyreek, utilized that ground game. He landed that big shot on Joe, was able to drop him, get him to stumble back and took control. They went to the ground and locked up the rear naked choke, and it was over that quick, and that's exactly what, Malvo needed. And then, just briefly, we'll talk about the prelim card, which came on, the prelims come out on the AKA Facebook page. So if you go to AKA Fights, it'll pop up for you. Go add them. There's always dropping pictures and the press releases for the next event, which I'm already working on that already. I'll touch on it in a second. AKA 16, June 25th in Bossier City. We'll I'll get on that. As Mr. John said, yeah, definitely. Getting better and better. A lot of these guys are getting better and better. Especially the guys that AKA is put on the stage here on UFC Fight Pass. That's what you want to see on Fight Pass. You want to see these guys, the guys that are getting better, the guys that are, really, working on their craft and elevating their game. A lot of these guys are definitely growing. Blaine Smith, what's up, Blaine? Might check out the new Ultimate Fighter series. Yeah, I haven't got a chance to check it out yet. Just with work, it's been crazy. I haven't had a chance to check it out. Definitely gonna check it out this weekend. Wish they would do another season with the veterans, like Sarah won. Yeah, definitely. Whenever Matt Sarah won, and yeah, definitely. I love that where they kind of bring back some of the older guys, and I don't want them to go crazy and get kind of what Bellator is doing with the Legacy series, but some of these guys that maybe been out the UFC just for a few years or something. Yeah, that would definitely be awesome to see. Like I said, I actually talked about it earlier. All huge fan of the Ultimate Fighter because I like the stories behind the fighters. Obviously, as a writer and a publicist, my big thing is the storytelling. That's definitely where my passion lies in it is the storytelling. That's why I like doing commentary work. It's storytelling. When the fighter's coming out, I love telling them, hey, this is the background of the fighter. This is what he trains in. This is, why he's fighting. This is why he's here. This is what he's fighting for. That's why I love doing that kind of stuff because I love the storytelling aspect of it. And the Ultimate Fighter does that. You find out where these guys are fighting from, where they're out of, and working their way to the top. Yeah, definitely would love, for them to do another thing like Matt Serra when it provided a great moment too. When Serra, he got the title shot against GSP because of that and scored probably, arguably one of the top, 2 or 3 biggest upsets in MMA history, So it provided a huge moment, why can't it happen again, So yeah, definitely, hopefully so. And I'm going to catch that Ultimate Fighter and we'll try to do a little segment here. Maybe we'll throw in an Ultimate Fighter update. We'll just talk about, whatever happened from the previous week. Maybe a couple little segment. We just adding segments. We'll keep rolling with it. That's awesome. I got a new set here. We're going to debut tonight later on in the end. But yeah, on the prelims though, like I said, go to AKA Fights on Facebook. It'll pop up. Add it. There's always stuff going on. We'll have publications coming out, press releases coming out. But you can also catch the prelims, which is normally it's about 5 fights or so, just depending on what's going on, and that's the amateur portion of the card. And the pro portion is 6 to 7 fights, just depending on what happens if there's emergency, something happens. that's the part that's on Fight Pass, that's the fights that we covered. But the amateur portion, you know, a lot of solid, bell to bell action. James Webb, featherweight won the first fight. Sawyer Thompson, another featherweight, won the second fight. Maybe that's a fight to put together. Two welterweights, two featherweights, both victorious in the same event. Both won by unanimous decision. Maybe that'll be a good one to put together. Webb definitely seemed to have more of a wrestling, attitude compared to Sawyer Thompson, who definitely, more of a striking attitude. So, maybe that's a good one, Sawyer Thompson and James Webb, to put together a featherweight. And Daniel De La Cruz and Clinton Dixon at middleweight. It took me longer to say his name than the fight lasted. De La Cruz just went in there and landed a huge right hand that just immediately, knocked out Dickens, and it was over. It was a good shot. It just ended it just like that. Murad Almas at welterweight against Jared Redmond and Carranza. Almas I was very impressed. I had never seen him in person before, but man, he was just a motor that just kept going. I was just waiting for him, and I could hear, Redmond's coach saying, he's going to burn out, but it didn't look like it happened. He just got his gas tank. He was just going, landing, big shots, and then, wrapping them up, takedown after takedown. I think it was like 9 takedowns or something. I have to go back and check the article where I threw the number in there. But yeah, so that's AKA 15 right there. Like I said, AKA 16 is June 25th, which is a Friday. It's going to be in Bossier City. You can go to the Facebook page, get all the information right there. There is a handful of bouts put together. I'm only going to say the main event. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't know how much I can put out yet, but I'm going to put the main event because it's on the poster. Chauncey Foxworth and Jonathan Patty, which are both middleweights in the main event, which is definitely going to be an amazing battle. Patty is coming off a Contender Series. Foxworth, is a dangerous fighter. I've seen him several times. I'm actually very excited because I never actually got to see Foxworth in person compete before, which I'm super stoked about. I'm definitely excited for that one, to be able to see him in person. I've actually already talked to him earlier today, so hopefully we can try to get him on the show before the event. We still got a couple more. We got 3 more shows before the event, so maybe we can get him on the next week or two. Try to get some of these guys on here and really promote them and promote these events, and supporting regional MMA. That's the biggest thing you can do. Help these guys out. Like I've said it before. Pretty much all of these guys still have jobs. Even fighters in the UFC. They still have 9 to 5 jobs that they go to and then go train twice a day. These guys too, especially, these guys that are trying to pay their dues and work their way up, they just trying to, this is their passion and their love, and, they're working on doing what they love. So, I'm always going to support somebody who's going out there, giving it their all, So, and Mr. John said it's going to be awesome. Yeah, definitely, for sure. That main event right there is going to be awesome. 2 middleweights that can definitely go, and when you say pro MMAs, pro MMA fighters, these are 2, high level pro MMA fighters. I've never seen either one in person, so I'm super excited and see them fight against each other. It's going to be amazing. That may open some things up for either fighter. Main event on Fight Pass, that's huge. And that's what all these fighters have said. It's a huge opportunity to fight on this platform. Because like I said, Fight Pass is worldwide. You got that UFC tag attached to the front of it. The Fight Pass, tons of subscribers all over the world. It's a huge thing. But we'll go ahead and jump into the next topic, which we're going to talk about the UFC event coming up this weekend. UFC Vegas 28. They took a break last week. There was no UFC event, but right back into action this week. And you notice I'll be glancing to the side. That's just because I have my other computer set up. That's where I have my fight card. So, if I do it from the same computer I'm streaming from, that's when I get the glitches and have the issues. So I'm using the other laptop. It makes it a little bit easier to deal with. But there's a ton of just a ton of actually interesting fights. No title fights. Obviously it's UFC Vegas 28. Um, but let's see what you got, Blaine. Really frustrated. Crawford and Spence hasn't fought yet. Boxing keeps dropping the balls. Fights. Missed the days of Leonard, Duran, Hagler, Hearns. Oh, absolutely, man. The Four Kings. Huge fights to stake claim to be the best. Today's fighters worry more about the money than the legacy. Yeah, absolutely, man. I've talked about this 100 times, so I was blue in the face, and I always say it. Boxing is so political, and I hate it. A lot of these names, like Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. At least we're getting Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao, and I think it's August 27th. So at least we're getting that. But yeah, but that's what you get. Yeah, Mr. John, I'm just saying 100%. Me and Blaine are definitely on the same page. Um, just I don't know. It's frustrating. Um, like the stuff going on with Anthony Joshua, and Tyson Fury and all that mess. So now Wilder's getting it, the third fight with Fury, and it goes to court for litigation. I'm like, oh man, when you getting all that into it, it's all about promoters. I understand the boxers, in general, get paid more than MMA fighters, which is definitely a plus. But it just a lot of the other things behind it, exactly like Blaine said, you don't really find out who the best is. Exactly like it, with Leonard and Duran and Hagler and Hearns, the Four Kings, they all fought each other. Nowadays you got four top guys in which I don't think it will ever have four guys in a weight class like that ever again. But those guys fought each other. It's not the same anymore. If we had that, we got two in Crawford and Spence. We can't even get them in the fight because if one Spence is with Fox or PBC or whatever it is, and then Crawford's with Arum. You don't. It leaves me speechless. Just I don't understand. And if you really are worried about making money, Crawford and Spence, put that in any building, it's going to sell out. Put it on pay-per-view for the $80, $90 or whatever they could do for Mayweather fights. People are going to pay to see that. I would love to see a Crawford Spence bout, no doubt. That's probably the most exciting I would get for a fight right now out of any boxers. But then, like I said, with the stuff with Joshua, where now he's bumped out of the fight and he's got to fight Usyk, which is still that's going to be an amazing fight too. No complaints with that. But the WBO just extended their time frame because it was coming up to where Joshua was going to have to either vacate the title or do a quick defense. So actually giving him a little bit longer window for them to negotiate something, with him being, the automatic, or the mandatory challenger and all that stuff. But when you have like four different bodies that say different things, and it's not even organizations like MMA, you have UFC and you have Bellator and you have PFL, and they have their own champions and their own thing. But then in boxing, you have the WBO, WBC, WBA, IBF, all four bodies claiming to have their own rankings of the same fighters. Some of these fighters are maybe two here and six here. It's all it's political, so it's a mess. It's a nightmare, that system. It's great they get paid more, but you're putting up with more, obviously. So I guess you're getting what you pay for. You deal with more of the BS, you getting more money to kind of deal with it. But we'll get back on we'll get back over here to UFC. Now, I appreciate it, Blaine. I love when you jump in it. You always have great points. Even on Blake's show on AYS. I love seeing you come up with a comment because you always have something great to say. Anybody else too, man? Jump in there. Y'all got anything? I'll go off topic. I don't care. We'll talk about whatever y'all want. If something pops in your head, jump. Y'all want to talk about Conor and Dustin? Pop it up there, and we'll talk about it. We'll just start at the top of this Vegas card here, UFC Vegas 28. Jairzinho Rosenstruck and Augusto Saki in the main event. Two heavyweights, that both need a win. Rosenstruck, he's had problems when he faces the cream of the crop of the heavyweight division. And, you're not going to get the title like that. He's lost two of his last three, and I know they're to big names, but if you want to win the title, you got to beat those big names. He's lost to Ngannou, obviously the champion now, and then Cyril Gane, that dude's going to be a champion in the future. I'm telling you, Cyril Gane out of France, that dude is going to be a heavyweight champion. He's early in his career, 7-0. He's going to be a champion. I'm telling you. Cyril Gane is dangerous. These French fighters. Man, a lot of them. Salvador Pernas, is the former KSW champion, featherweight division. If he ever makes that jump to the UFC, he's another one of them that can definitely do some damage and win some real titles. But Rosenstruck, he's got that kickboxing background. Fought in Glory, fought all over the world. I mean, just dangerous striker. He showed obviously with the damage he did to Alistair Overeem, and just he's got a handful of knockouts. But and Saki coming off of a loss. So it's weird to see a main event with two guys coming off of a loss. I don't know, maybe y'all can tell me the last time, a main event had, two guys coming off of losses. I can't, off the top of my head, it's not coming to me. But, I think Rosenstruck is going to get the victory. I think he's just at a better point in his career overall where he can get that win. Dangerous striker. I think he can push it too all the way to the end. I think he's probably going to catch Saki at the end, get a TKO stoppage probably mid to late round 3, maybe early round 4. Once it starts getting in deep waters and Rosenstruck is still around, Saki is probably going to start falling off a little bit. I think that's where he'll catch him. Co-main event, Walt Harris, Marcin Tybura. Everybody knows my obsession with Polish MMA. I'm definitely going to go with Marcin Tybura, which I probably would anyway, just with the way things have kind of been. Walt Harris, just the worst couple of years that anybody could even imagine. I couldn't even imagine that. I lost my mom about 6 weeks ago, very unexpectedly, but I couldn't imagine losing a child. But even inside the cage, so it hasn't been all that great for him lately either. And he's definitely one of those live by the sword, die by the sword kind of fighters. He's either going to knock out or get knocked out. It's just his style. All 13 of his career wins have come by either knockout or TKO. Just his style. Marcin Tybura, on a roll right now. Looking for his 4th straight win. He's kind of found his groove. I think he had lost 4 or 5 or 5 or 6 or something, and then all of a sudden turned it around, won 3 in a row, looking at for number 4. So, I mean, he's right there on getting into that title talk. Heavyweight division has always been one of those notoriously where you win, 2, 3, even especially 4, you're right there in title talks. So if he gets a win here, that'll bolster his stock up, and get him one of those big names. He gets a win against that big name after this, he's in title talks. Next is Roman Dolizad and Marino Starpoli. Roman Dolizad, dangerous fighter. I love watching him fight. Even before he got into the UFC. Coming off of a loss to Trevin Giles, who I've actually got to talk to before. Amazing guy, amazing fighter. He's actually a Houston police officer. As I was saying, a lot of these guys have full-time jobs. I mean, this guy's a police officer in one of the most dangerous cities, to work in as a police officer, and then still goes and does this thing in the UFC. So Giles is on a 3-fight win streak now. So, that loss doesn't look as bad for Roman as it could, I guess. But, Roman's going to look to come back from that. Staropoli is in danger right now. He's got 2 losses in a row. And, he's really got to turn it around. But I'm going to go with Roman on this one. I've always been a fan of his, loved his style. Just a dangerous guy, dangerous fighter, dangerous guy. And I think he's definitely going to get back on track here. And then next, we have the fight that I'm predicting is going to take fight of the night. Santiago Ponzinibbio and Miguel Baeza. Man, this is a fight I'm definitely looking forward to. I saw this on the card, and man, this could be your main event, co-main event right here. This is, both these guys, throw fire. Santiago was that guy several years ago in the welterweight division, win 6, 7, 8 fights in a row. I think it was 7 fights in a row. Then lost to Leach, got him and knocked him out. Um, but Miguel, 10-0. He's what Ponzinibbio was years ago. It's almost like a passing of the torch in a way, because these guys are almost the same, just like that next generation where Miguel is just a dangerous fighter, and Ponzinibbio has shown that he can be knocked out now, and Baiza is definitely a more dangerous striker than Leach is. So it's going to be fight of the night for sure. I think Baiza is going to get it and may even get the knockout, maybe second round or so. But I think it's definitely going to be fight of the night. Definitely looking forward to this one for sure, without a doubt. Tesco Tortovich and Gregory Rodriguez at 185 pounds. This is the second fight that's going to be on the main card. Dusko, 10-1. Gregory is 9-3. So, two guys that are up there. Dusko's last fight was a loss to Soriano. He's 1-1 in the UFC since he won on the Contender Series. So, just another guy still early in his UFC career. Just you don't know until they kind of get a handful of fights under their belt. Rodriguez making his UFC debut. Fought on the Contender Series and lost. Went to LFA, got a couple of wins in LFA, 2 knockouts in LFA, and getting his shot. So, we'll see. I'm going to go with Dusko. Just, I've seen him before. I've seen a lot of his. He's a very solid striker. And I just think, having a couple UFC fights under his belt is going to help him out just enough to where, he can get the win. And then the main card opener, which, is definitely, going to be a great fight too, is Tom Breeze and Antonio Arroyo. Arroyo stepping into the octagon for the third time. Officially, he's got 2 Contender Series fights. He won both of his Contender Series fights. And then just lost both of his fights in the UFC, not under the Contender Series banner. Trying to see how to word it to where it makes sense. But both of those are decision losses. When he wins, though, he finishes. And that's the thing. You just never know. And Tom Breeze, just a very dangerous striker. Coming off of a couple losses. I think he's 1-3 in his last, or 1-2 in his last couple fights. He's got a loss to Brendan Allen, which doesn't look bad on your record right now. Brendan Allen is just blowing it up right now, especially representing Louisiana. Blowing it up. And then Akhmedov, he fought in January. Breeze did, and got a loss. So that's 2 guys, that are very dangerous guys to lose to. No shame really in either one of them. But he's got to turn it around if he wants to get rolling in the right direction. He's got to come back. And he's got to get a win. 29 years old. He'll be 30 in a couple months. If you want to get the ball rolling in the right direction, it's definitely a make or break for him. So on the prelims, though, there's definitely like I said, from top to bottom, this is really actually a really good card. So we had the week off last week. I don't know if that kind of helped. Makes it a little bit a little bit more of an interesting card. Just hit a couple of these prelim fights. Definitely keep your eye on. Tanner Boser and Ilir Latifi at heavyweight. Definitely going to be a good one to watch. Tanner Boser made a name for himself and fighting over in Russia. Just Canadian. He fought over in Russia several times. He's looked great in the UFC so far. Ilir Latifi really made his staple in the light heavyweight division. As he's getting older, it's getting harder on him to make the light heavyweight weight. So going up to heavyweight, which he's going to give up a lot of size to Boser. I think that's going to be a detriment. Boser has showed many times he can go the distance. He's got a gas tank. He can go to the distance and just punish along the way. I think that's going to hurt Latifi is Boser's ability to have all that weight to press on top. keep the pressure, and the gas tank. So I think just the culmination of all that is going to be too much for Latifi against somebody like Bozer. So I think Tanner Bozer, I think he's probably going to get a decision. Um, Definitely another one to look out for, Montana De La Rosa and Ariane Lipinski. Huge fan of Lipinski, KSW, strawweight champion, the last, female champion in KSW after she vacated the title to sign with the UFC. Hasn't been another women's KSW champion yet. Had several fights. They actually have one on the card this weekend at KSW 61, but they haven't crowned a champion since Lipinski. Definitely dangerous striker, but she showed in her last fight she's got submission game too. De La Rosa, definitely known for the ground game, her wrestling, but her striking's improved. So kind of opposite spectrum where they have their very strong suit, but they've showed in the other aspect, your two main aspects, your up game and your down game. They've shown that they've made improvements, in that opposite. So we'll just have to see, who's made more improvements, in their opposite field. And so I'm gonna go. I think Lipinski's gonna get it. I'm just, KSW bias there, but and then Manon Fiorot, she's making her second fight under the UFC banner. She was a UAE Warriors champion, EFC Worldwide champion. They have their version of the Ultimate Fighter. I forget exactly what the title is, but she actually won that season and then went on and won the title. Just a dangerous striker out of France. I was talking about that earlier with Cyril Gagne and then Sabahin Parnasse. Fiorot, she is just a dangerous striker. She's got a win over Victoria Leonardo in her first fight in the UFC. So this is her second bout in the UFC. Just a dangerous, fighter. So she's definitely somebody to watch out for. So we'll go ahead and talk about a new segment we're going to do here this week in MMA. So what I'll do and what I did for this week is just take a couple key events that took place, in MMA's history during the week. Tried to stick to the date, what happened exactly on this day, and hit a couple from previous day, but made me a little list here. 4 years ago today, Max Holloway defeated Jose Aldo. And, I think that was huge for Max Holloway. A lot of people consider him or talk about him as being, one of the best flyweights ever. And beating Jose Aldo is definitely, your ticket because a lot of people consider Jose as the best. So, he definitely needed those wins, On yesterday's date in 2012, so 9 years ago yesterday, Conor McGregor won his first world title in Cage Warriors. He defeated Dave Hall as a featherweight, then eventually would go on to win the light heavyweight before, and the rest is history. Everybody knows the Conor story from there. Yesterday's date in 2007, Brock Lesnar made his MMA debut, which he had a fight, maybe two, I think maybe only one, and then made the jump to the UFC. He had the name from his pro wrestling background, but he had his collegiate wrestling at Minnesota before that, so he wasn't just like a pro athlete or just like with boxing right now with guys like the Paul brothers. I'll mention it because it's going on. I'm not going to talk about it. Logan Paul is fighting Floyd Mayweather this weekend. I know it's modified rules exhibition. There's no judges and no official announcement will be made as far as a winner. And then recently, like in the last day or so, Jake Paul is going to be fighting Tyron Woodley. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that fans out as far as rulings and stuff like that. But that's that. We talked about that. And then on May 31st, which was Monday, so in 2008 on Monday, which was 13 years on Monday, Kimbo Slice defeated James Thompson on CBS. I think it was Elite XC. And it was memorable because it was whenever James Thompson's ear exploded on TV, whenever Kimbo landed a big right in the ear. We've seen it a couple times since. Happened at FEN 31 in Poland. Same thing. Paweł Trzaskowski, landed a right hook and busted his opponent's ear. Just exploded. Um, you know, it happens. So we'll go to the closing segment, which is always my favorite, 3% Polish, and we're gonna talk about just for a couple minutes here, and then we'll get rolling. Off of here is KSW 61 will be Saturday, June 5th. It's the first event since the COVID outbreak where there'll actually be fans in attendance. Um, the government over there in Poland is allowing half capacity. So the Ergos Arena holds about 15,000, so they can have up to 7,000, 7,500 people. So we'll see how many they want to have in there. I don't know how many they're going to want to have, but they can have up to 7,500 because Ergos Arena holds about 15,000. Mariusz Pudzianowski, Puds, will be taking on Lucas Drakowski in the main event, and it doesn't get much more veteran than this, for KSW. Puds holds the record for the most World's Strongest Man championships. He's won the World's Strongest Man 5 times. He actually finished runner-up twice. And then Drakowski won the very first KSW tournament, which took place at KSW 1. So this is KSW 61. This is not like the UFC where they have an event every week. They have one. They started out about once every 3-4 months with an event. So this was like 2002, 2000, early 2000s or so when they kicked off. You can be hard pressed to find a veteran still fighting for an organization since their very first show. Drakowski's been there from day one, literally. He won KSW 1. He was made it to the finals in KSW 2 and 3. He's been there, just a solid rock ever since. Puds, and he's been around for a while too. He made his debut in KSW. And that's been his home really since day one. So we'll see. Just a battle of two veterans. Puds has been looking good lately. He's got the knockout over Urko Yoon, who actually announced on his Facebook that he's got a fight coming up. And I messaged him, talked to him about it. He's actually set to compete in September. I don't think he's put that out yet. So here you go for tuning in to 3% Polish. You find out your Urko Yoon's fighting in September, which is probably about the time that they'll have a full card, full capacity. Somebody like that, I'm really thinking that's probably about the time we'll see Martin Ford also. I've been saying that for months, that whenever they go to full capacity is when we'll see Martin Ford. So this is the first one at half capacity. I've talked to a lot of fighters from Poland. I probably more Polish fighters than American fighters. And everyone I talk to, I always talk to them about COVID being, the whole other side of the world, just to see what it's like. And, they're like, it's very conservative, as far as trying to stop the outbreak and, events and things like that. So they're finally, opening back up a little bit. And for this event to be at half capacity is huge for them, taking a step forward in the right direction for their progression. So definitely, that's two veterans right there. And Salahin Parnas, as I said, lost his featherweight title in his last outing to Daniel Torres. He just got caught. I think probably 99 times out of 100, Parnas would win, but that was that one. And that's why they fight. You don't know until it happens. If it was done on paper, they wouldn't get into the cage. There'd be no point. But you don't fight on paper. You fight in the cage, and that's what happened. And I think Parnas gets a good win here against Filip Pejovic. Pejovic, he can get a title shot. I don't know if Torres has anything in the works. I'll find out. If he does, it's probably for August, if I had to guess. So if Torres wins, if Parnas can get a nice win here against Pejovic, who's coming off a 12-second knockout, see them fighting at the end of the year, maybe. November, December, have them headline a card, with full capacity. Maybe in France. France legalized MMA, in the last year or two. Martin Lewandowski is one of the co-owners of KSW. Talked about, expanding a little bit. They do most of their shows in Poland. They've done a couple in England. He's talked about it before. I've translated a lot of the articles from local media over in Poland. And he said that they don't want to run themselves out of business, because a lot of times that's what happens to MMA organizations or pro wrestling. They try to spread themselves out too quick and just implode. So they're doing a lot in Poland. They, you know, every here and there that they do a show in the Czech Republic right next door. So they're expanding a little bit. You know, they've done KSW 50 was in London. So, you know, they could definitely end up back in London. And you never know, France may be on the cards. You know, would love to see them in America one day, which, you know, he said that's a possibility within the next handful of years, maybe come and do one show in America. You know, in a big city, Chicago, New York. You know, he mentioned a couple of those cities. So that would be, you know, an amazing thing for the American public to see, the kind of show that KSW can put on. But, you know, we'll just hit those couple two fights here, get y'all out of here. KSW 61 can be seen on, if you download the KSW app, if you have an Android phone, download the app. I'm sure it's on Apple too. Just go to KSW, download the app. You can get it through the app. Go to Fight TV, FITE. This is not like UFC. You know, you're not paying $50, $60. It's $10, $11 at the most. You know, nine pro fights. You know, just, you know, amazing fights. There's a ton of fighters on here that are. Ivan Ursulin is on there. I mean, just amazing, you know, fighters from around Europe that are going to be on the card. So definitely check that out. So, in closing, you know, like I said at the top, subscribe to the Are You Serious Sports YouTube page. Follow us on Facebook. You know, also AYS Fight Club on Twitter. Come join me over there. It's AYS_Fight Club. Come join me over there. And like I always say, you know, in closing, first rule of the Fight Club, tell all your friends about Bob Fight Club. So that's it. You know, I'll talk to y'all next week. And